Hello and welcome to our Reboot review. I'm Paul,
And I'm Dave.
and this week we are discussing the episode Web Riders on the Storm. This episode originally aired October 29th, 1997 here in Canada. Oh boy, Dave, this was a hell of a week. Let us start off with the number one film at the box office this week. End of October, it's nice and chilly out. We're in the mood for a scary movie.
No, around the time, good for the spooks. And again, around this time, what would have been popular at around that time?
I'll give you a hint. It's from the writer of Scream.
Okay, because that was one of the ones that kind of came to mind, but whether or not it was one of its sequels or something else that he worked on, I think is the question.
It's not a sequel to Scream. It is a different franchise.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember, but it's the same as it was the last time we chatted.
Oh, that was a while ago with our last chat with last movie that was still in theaters at that time. And nothing is immediately coming to mind around the time for the spoopies.
For the third week in the row, it is I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yes, that particular series.
Yes.
Which I believe is the case that I need to work on. Like I maybe seen one or two, but like not sure which one it is.
Uh from memory, the first two were pretty good, but don't bother with anything past like the first two.
Kind of the marvelous case of, oh man, franchise, let's go ahead and make another one, having no idea what any of the story concept or whatnot is about.
Yeah, because the first two went to theaters, and I remember them being quite like pretty good, especially because they have like really good casts still. And then the third
Mm.
one was like a direct to DVD movie that had like nobody you've probably ever heard of in it.
Yeah, yeah. Like in some cases, it's a sure sign of, ooh, you guys do not have money.
Well, yeah, they. I'm sure it was a lot cheaper, and it was like 8 years after the previous one, which
Yeah,
usually isn't a good sign.
yeah.
Anyway, let us move on to video games because holy crap, was this a good week if you were a gamer?
So many neat things.
Oh my god. Okay, so October 29th, which is the day this episode aired, if you were a PC gamer, although it would later come to Saturn and PS1, you could go to the stores and pick up a little game called Riven, the sequel to Myst.
Interesting. Because I think I know of that. Little bits. It's one of the series I haven't had a chance to explore.
Myst is a very good like adventure puzzle game series.
Mm.
There's like five or so of them, and I remember all of them being pretty good
Neat.
from memory. Um, so October 30th, if you were a Saturn gamer, which I mean, there probably were some of you,
Mm.
you could pick up a little game called Culdicept. I'm not familiar with this. It's some kind of turn-based strategy game. Apparently, it's part of a franchise, though, like a series.
Interesting.
But I am.
Oh, oh, never mind. Looking a little bit into it, shares sort of ideas of Monopoly and supposedly Magic the Gathering. So, supposedly interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Uh, on October 31st, oh my god. If you're a PC gamer, you could pick up this little game called The Curse of Monkey Island.
Oh man, this was a thing.
This was absolutely a thing. Oh my god, The Curse of Monkey Island. If that wasn't your deal and you were a PC gamer, on the same day you could go pick up Zork Grand Inquisitor, which is another like graphical adventure type thing. I'm not familiar with this one, but this was kind of the era of that type of game.
Interesting.
It got fairly good reviews though, so
Hmm.
This game just has November as a release date, so I don't know the exact date, but we'll throw it in here. A little game called Independence War, also known as I War in some places. It's like
I
a
suppose they don't have the room to stick in the whole wording most everything.
yeah, it looks like it's like a space kind of combat game, which
Hmm.
those were also pretty popular around that time.
So true, so true.
November 1st, if you were a PS1 gamer, you oh my god, did you get a hell of a gift on November 1st? Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back.
Yes, with this particular series. Still a case that I need to crack into the Crash Bandicoot series, though it's more of the updated games and whatnot. But nevertheless, I've heard many people online giving praises to this particular one.
Yeah, so you never played the original Crash games, right? Like you didn't play them on the PS1?
Not with any of the originals, no.
Okay. Then I highly recommend picking up the remastered trilogy or whatever they called it.
Mhm.
If you played the games on PS1, playing the remastered can be a bit of a mind fuck because things are just slightly different.
Yeah, understandable. There's only so much that you can supposedly bring from the traditional jank from the old systems into new systems.
Well, and like the way the platforms worked somehow was different. Like it was just like a little bit different though.
Mm.
Anyway, if you had, now I made fun of Saturn gamers earlier, but there were at least like 10 of them. For the two people that owned a Neo Geo,
Yeah, yeah,
you could pick up a little game called Shock Troopers. Apparently, this also came to arcade as well, which makes sense
yeah,
because.
understandable.
And the final game we have for this week on November 4th, you could pick up a game called Colony Wars on the PS1, which I am not familiar with either. But apparently, it got a couple of sequels. It's like
Neat.
a space combat kind of game.
Yeah, one of those particular ones.
And just because we do this every time, you already know what the answer is. Number one song in America is still Elton John's Candle in the Wind 97 / something about the way you look tonight. And it's going to be that for a long time.
Which is understandable, because I now understand the Candle in the Wind song.
And also, it's Elton John in 1997. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Just kind of the marvelous case of even with not knowing it and then discovering it, it's like, wow, Elton John did a whole bunch of stuff when I was a child.
Yes, yeah. Alrighty, let us get into the episode. Okay, so we have the crew of the Saucy Mare, which will never not be funny, encounter web riders, beings living in the web, who are not happy with their arrival in said web. The crew must fight them off, and time is running out for Andrea. However, a friend arrives at the end. Da 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 da! So, what did you think of this episode, Dave? There's
I
a lot
think
of.
on whole with this particular episode, it's one or two little things from this episode either spurned memories that I specifically remembered about the show, or little details that I kind of missed where it's like, that is interesting, and I'd like to expand on those particular sort of thoughts. This was kind of one of those nice, more pirate ship getting attacked, battling sort of episodes, which is always interesting to see, especially from season one when they first did it. There's only so much they could do with the basic concept, where this one got to explore a little bit more with we've been on the ship with them in this new environment and just battling with other people with the dangers and concerns that could happen. And additionally, condolences go out to the lost sprite that went out into the web without a suit. So sad.
Yeah, this episode was a lot more focused on action than some of our previous ones,
Hmm.
which isn't like a problem. Like there's good animation and stuff in it, and I'm not complaining about that. Um, but we do get an old friend back at the end of this episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, nevertheless, I knew And just looking at it, I additionally knew, but just with how the episode frames it, with the last couple of episodes and other sorts of things, they bring up one of the specific web writers is a bit more of the head leader, sort of honcho. And the one case they could go with the idea of him being the enemy and or him being someone that we know of. But then the new particular hero character comes in and just not sure how most other people are, but you just look at his outfit, you look at his mannerisms, and you see how things go on with the episode, and it just sort of builds up, and it's like, and you know. And then, of course, getting the face reveal just adds everything up on top of it. That, ladies and gentlemen, we got back Bob.
Yes, and like you said, they don't really try to hide it because like the costume design and everything is just Bob.
Yeah, pretty much matches up to it.
Yeah.
And it's one of the particular things that I either misremembered or either saw in a previous episode and didn't place it to here was the supposed joke of, oh man, what happens when Enzo sees Bob? But Enzo's not exactly Enzo when he was uh last time he saw Bob. So Bob kind of corrects him on it. Whoa, hang on a second. I think you're a little bit too big for that. It's like, wait a minute. Wasn't there a scene where Matrix just essentially tackles down Bob for something? It's like, am I misremembering something?
Okay, so I'm a little surprised it took this long to get Bob back, considering he's such an important character in the first two seasons. Because we've gone basically almost an entire season. Like this season is 16 episodes, and we're at episode 13, and we're just getting Bob back at the end. A little surprised with that decision.
Okay.
I actually kind of like it because it did give us time to develop Enzo and Andrea a bit more. But I'm a little surprised that they took the risk of taking Bob out of the show for so long.
Okay. And again, I think just with one or two episodes, there was the episode several times back with the Bob look-alike character from one of the systems they went to that, again, had I believe it was the case looking into, picked up the newer voice actor or sound alike sort of person for his voice.
Yeah,
And
so
supposedly were testing the waters a little bit for working him into the story for the idea of he's most likely going to come back, but it's still the case of we have to build up the story a bit before they can really get to it.
so there's a new voice actor for Bob, and he's fine, I guess. I don't know. I just feel like his voice is much more generic now than it was before. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. But overall, I thought
And
this.
concerns with particular actors either trying to uh, match up with particular voice sort of styles or how certain things get played, those sorts of things, I suppose.
Yeah, but overall, I thought this was a pretty good episode. It sets up kind of what we're going to get in the last part of the season. And we got Bob back, which is good.
It is interesting. So, a couple other little thoughts going through this episode was it leads to face reveal of the web riders that are invading the ship. And it's the case of people shouting out, oh god, they're degenerated sprites. So the case of sprites being affected by the web, needing protection, but still surviving, but being affected by being outside of systems.
Yes, yeah.
So it's an interesting concept for that. The additional thing was the idea of the energy transfer device that was used by Matrix to help Andrea survive a little bit longer. It's like, oh, I remember this sort of thing. And then taking a second glance at it, I sort of thought, God, that would make one sick ass computer tower if someone was able to design it.
I have to get another look at this. I don't remember what it looks like, but I'm glad you're thinking about these things now. That makes me so happy. Like Dave's like, that would be a cool case. Because I have
And
that
again,
thought a lot.
it would be ridiculously garish. Like several of the little things on it spin. It has a circular section in one part of it. Like outside of it, it's like it would look cool, but God, how would you be able to shove anything inside of it?
Alrighty. So, did you have any other thoughts about this episode, Dave?
Hmm. I think on whole there was one or two other little interactions of there was Princess, who's been keeping an eye on Andrea for the most part until Matrix comes to transfer his energy to her. So ship starts getting attacked, and Princess is like, "No, you stay. I'll go up." And the princess is going up. It's like, oh man, Princess is going out to have some fun. And she gets a couple little scenes of fighting against some of the web writers. And I think the last little thought of mine was, dear old little Frisket, always the good guard dog, uh, guarding against Bob showing up in his attire, sort of giving him the sniff. It's like, wait a minute, I recognize you. I'm still gonna be a guard dog, and Bob just give me that head shake of, yeah, I'm still not your favorite, aren't I?
Yeah, no, I quite like that scene as well. I thought, again, Frisket's he's a good boy.
He being the good boy.
He being a good boy. Anyway, next week we'll be discussing the episode Mousetrap. Da da da.
Yeah, yeah.
Now that we've got Bob back and we find a portal, the saucy mayor prepares to return to mainframe, but Mouse has set traps that make the trip more difficult than expected. Curse you, Mouse, being good at your job.
Such horrible talent.
Yes, so that will be next week. Until then, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.